The Bantamweight division recently saw the crowning of a new king this past September as Sean O'Malley brutally dethroned Aljamain Sterling at UFC 292. After Aljos loss and a potential move up to 145, the Bantamweight division will likely go through a dramatic reshuffle that will bring forth a new era of title competitors. Two fighters hoping to continue climbing up through the division rankings are Cory Sandhagen and the undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov. If both are serious about becoming a UFC champion, then no doubt their paths will inevitably cross at some point. Join us in this video as we break down just what would happen if Sandhagen and Nurmagomedov met inside the UFC's octagon. Don't forget to stick around until the end to get our official prediction. A future matchup between Cory Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov could ultimately decide who gets the next title shot. The pair were initially supposed to headline the Nashville Fight Night card on the 5th of August. However, 2 weeks before they were due to meet inside the cage, Nurmagomedov announced he would have to pull out of the scheduled fight. Various MMA journalists broke the news, and it was later confirmed by Umar's manager, Ali Abdulaziz. He claimed Umar had to pull out due to an unforeseen shoulder problem, which later required surgery. While it's unlikely we'll see Umar return to the octagon this year, when he does, the number 11 ranked bantamweight will be looking to break into the top 10. With Sandhagen claiming he wants to continue fighting the best in the division, we may get to see this highly anticipated matchup in the new year. When we do, it could catapult either fight right into a number 1 contender spot. Before we begin to break down the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter in a potential future matchup, let's first discuss how these fighters got to where they are today. Cory Sandhagen grew up in Aurora, Colorado, and believe it or not, his first love was basketball, which he played throughout high school. Towards the end of his school years, he became interested in combat sports and began training in kickboxing, which led him to start competing in amateur MMA shows. Sandhagen eventually turned pro in 2015, and just 2 years later, he made his debut on the popular Texan promotion Legacy Fighting Alliance. Unfortunately, he lost his debut by way of unanimous decision. The Colorado native followed this up with 2 spectacular TKO finishes, and just a few short months later, he was signed to the UFC. Sandhagen went on an impressive 5-fight win streak in the promotion, but he was stopped in his tracks by a young Aljamain Sterling at UFC 250. After his loss to Aljo, he bounced back and earned impressive wins over Marlon Moraes and Frankie Edgar, finishing the latter with a brutal flying knee. He went on to lose a tight decision to TJ Dillashaw in July of 2021, but would face off against the then bantamweight champ, Peter Yan, in the following October. Again, he would lose by way of decision in a fight that many said could have been judged either way. After the defeat at the hands of Yan, Sandhagen took a year off and returned in September of 2022 to face off against Song Yadong. He went on to finish Yadong in the 4th round of their fight and followed this up with a decision victory over Marlon Vera in March of the following year. After this, Sandhagen decided he would accept a fight against the division's boogeyman, Umar Nurmagomedov. But as we previously mentioned, the Dagestani was replaced by Rob Font. Following his victory over Font, Sandhagen currently sits at the number 4 spot on the bantamweight rankings, and a win over the hype train that is Nurmagomedov could certainly earn him another title shot. With that being said about Sandhagen, now let's dive into the backstory of Umar Nurmagomedov. Born in the Dagestani region of Russia, Umar Nurmagomedov began training in wrestling at a very young age with his brother and current Bellator champion Usman. Umar began training in kickboxing at a young age, eventually moved to Makhachkala to train with Khabib Nurmagomedov's father, Abdulmanap. At the young age of 20, he became the WMMA's amateur world champion. Umar turned pro in 2016 and fought for various promotions, including Eagle Fighting Championship and the PFL, before signing with the UFC in 2020. The young Eagle debuted against Sergey Morozov in January of 2020, finishing his opponent in the 2nd round with a rear naked choke. He went on to earn another submission victory in March of 2022 against Brian Kalea, before defeating Nate Manas by way of unanimous decision the following June. In his 4th UFC fight against Raoni Barcelos, Umar showed he could strike as well as he could grapple and finished his opponents by way of brutal TKO. This led to Umar to a scheduled fight with Cory Sandhagen, who was 7 places above him in the rankings. Ultimately, this shows how much hype is behind this young Dagestani. While he had to pull out of the fight due to injury, we can expect to see him return in 2024 at the latest, and no doubt the UFC will be aiming to reschedule the highly anticipated fight against Sandhagen. Now that we've discussed the backstories of both fighters, let's dive into the strengths and weaknesses, starting with Sandhagen. Strength number 1. Striking. In the past few years, Sandhagen has established himself as one of the greatest bantamweight competitors in the UFC. Much of this had to do with his elite level of kickboxing, making him a nightmare to deal with on the feet. Sandhagen is a rangy striker who aims to land devastating blows at a high volume. Being a master of distance and timing, this will ultimately work to his advantage against a wrestler such as Umar. If he can capitalise on his range, we will see him land trademark kicks and jabs without risking a takedown. Umar will likely try and force Sandhagen to fight in the pocket, but this could work in the Colorado native's favour. Just like we saw in his fight against Song Yadong, Sandhagen may begin to counter Umar's forward pressure and light him up with elbows and knees. This could work in Sandhagen's favour as he may deter the Dagestani from getting too close. Strength number 2, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Sandhagen is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and he attempts a lot more submissions than his kickboxing background would suggest. This could help him defend against the onslaught of takedowns of being brought on by Umar. We've seen Sandhagen make the use of the Kimura as part of his takedown defense on various occasions. One example in his fight against Bautista, in which Sandhagen locked up the Kimura during a takedown attempt, forcing his opponent to abandon the position. This allowed Sandhagen to gain the upper hand and transition into an armbar, forcing Bautista to tap. If Sandhagen can employ such submission skills in a fight against Umar, it may allow him to offensively stuff some of Dagestani's takedown attempts. Weakness: wrestling. Sandhagen is known for his elite striking in the UFC, and while we've seen him grapple from time to time, such as the fight with Marlon Vera, wrestling with someone like Umar may prove to be a difficult day at the office. Sandhagen certainly isn't the worst grappler in the division, but we saw Aljamain Sterling hold him on the ground for long periods during their fight a few years ago. Umar certainly has skills that mirror Aljos, and this may allow him to out-grapple Sandhagen throughout the fight. With that being said about Sandhagen's strengths and weaknesses, let's discuss Umar's. Strength number 1, wrestling. As with all of the Dagestani fighters, wrestling is in Umar's blood, and this skill is feared throughout the bantamweight division. We've seen him take down just about every opponent he's shared the octagon with, and his skill set in this discipline is already considered among the best in the division. Umar's grappling is strikingly similar of that to Islam Makhachev. He has a strong takedown game that focuses on submission of opponents as opposed to ground control. This allows him to secure the back. From here, no one is escaping the Dagestani grasp. But it's not just the ability Umar has to take an opponent down, it's how he can hold his opponent on the ground for extended periods of time. This is something all elite Dagestani wrestlers do well, and if Umar can get Sandhagen to the ground, the American may struggle to get back to his feet. Strength number 2, kickboxing. While Umar excels in the grappling department, he is also an admirable kickboxer and has been training in the discipline since his amateur fighting days. We've seen Umar's ability to judge distance and land some devastating kicks in previous fights that begin to break down his opponents. On top of this, we saw what his striking was capable of back at the beginning of 2023. During his fight against Barcelos, he timed a perfect knee through his opponent's guard and knocked him out cold in the process. When it comes to Umar's striking, Sandhagen would be silly not to consider him a serious threat on the feet. So now that we've broken down both fighters' strengths and weaknesses, it's time for our official prediction. But before we do that, we hold a monthly shout out on our channel, and all you need to do to enter is comment "I subbed" in the comment section below. So make sure to comment and you'll be in with a chance of winning. There's a reason Umar Nurmagomedov is the most feared competitor in the bantamweight division, and it's tough to argue against the idea he will be champion at some point. This has led us to conclude that the Dagestani will emerge victorious in a future fight against Sandhagen. During the beginning of the fight, we can expect to see Umar shoot in and trying to employ his elite grappling skills, but Sandhagen will likely be able to hold him off for most part, at least until he begins to drain the gas tank. We may see some interesting striking exchanges, which Sandhagen may find success in, and this will allow the fight to make it into the later rounds. But by the third round, we believe that Umar will begin to tire Sandhagen out with his grappling and may even assert his control on the ground. As Sandhagen begins to struggle with the pressure of Umar, he may give up his back to escape the ground and pound. Unfortunately, this is a mistake we've all seen before. A Dagestani on your back is the last place you want to be inside the octagon. From here, we believe Umar will take the victory by way of rear naked choke.